do something today that I hate to do. You ever have to do anything you hate to do? Now, it doesn't make it any more pleasurable or any less unpleasurable if you're doing something you hate to do because God told you to do it. It just makes you being obedient even though you don't want to. Right? Now, when preachers say things like, God told me to do something, sometimes I feel like we should cue the Twilight Zone music, you know. What do you mean God told you to do it? Did he appear before you? Did you hear a voice? Something like, no. The way, when I say God told me to do it, the way that happens with me is, as I'm praying and as I'm seeking the Lord's will, the same thought keeps coming into my head. And then when I start to raise objections about it, then the answer comes to my head. For example, I had a nice little devotional, short little thing like we usually do when we have communion, based upon Galatians 2:20. And I was going to talk about how believers have to die to themselves in order for God's life to flow through us. And remind you of Mark 8:34, where Jesus said, whoever will come after me, let him deny himself and follow me. And kind of go along that line. But then, I read something, because I subscribe to a lot of different Christian blogs and things like that. So I get a lot of stuff and I have the opportunity to read. And I read this article by Ann Voskamp, and I just couldn't shake it. It just kept coming back to me. I think this was on Tuesday. So finally on Thursday, I printed it out. And I would read it over. That nagging voice, you've got to read this at church Sunday. And one of the first things I thought to myself was, I don't want to do that because I hate it when people read to me. When somebody tries to read something to me, I just say, look, just give it to me, let me read it myself. And then I got to thinking, you know, if I just get up and read something somebody else wrote, everybody at church is going to think, well, you didn't put any thought or any prayers or anything into getting ready. And they're not going to be happy with you. And I kind of hear the Lord talk to me and say, well, that's just your pride, dude. Get over it. Just read it. Just do what I tell you to do. So, this is what I want to do. I don't know who Ann Voskamp is, but I know when I read this, it just has gnawed at me ever since, to the point where I have to surrender, I have to succumb, I have to give in and read this to you. Dear church, after a Sunday in Africa, you look different. You look hungry, hungrier than anything I've seen in Africa. Because after I watched that Ugandan woman, the one with no shoes and no husband and 7 kids, walk up to the front of the church and put this bag of beans into the basket as her love offering to God, my heart ached with this raw conviction that I could feel it with you, North American church, what you really wanted. You're hungry to love like this. You're hungry for the uncomfortable. You're hungry to sacrifice your Starbucks coffees, your Netflix subscription, your dinners out for something more. You're hungry for more than vanilla services and sweetened programs and watered-down lives. You're famished for more, for hard and holy things, for some real meat for your starved soul, some real dirt under your fingernails, some real sacrifice in your veins, some real issues in your blood and in your hands and in your feet. When I sat under a tree in Africa for Sunday school class, sat in the class, a class that had no $1 million roof, no walls, no chalkboard or crayons, no papers, flags, glitz, or gloss, just one tree and one grinning teacher with a falling apart Bible. I could hear your restlessness, North American church. When that teacher stood under that tree on a Sunday morning and told the kids dressed up in not a whole lot more than tattered rags, God lets us all give, just like the widow's offering. He was smiling like he was the one that swallowed the infamous original canary. He couldn't stop laughing giddily. You don't have to wait to have more. You don't have to wait to have much. You don't have to wait at all. And I'm looking into the eyes of all these African children, all these hungry, dancing eyes, and the teacher literally dancing under the tree. You all get to give. It's not just the rich who get to give. It's all those who give who get to be rich. You don't wait until you have more before you give to God. You give now so that you become more in God. The children are all smiling and singing, and there's this light coming like dappled deliverance through the leaves. Bring your only mango to Jesus, the teacher's waving hands in extravagant joy. Bring your one handful of beans. Bring your one heart overflowing with song. It's not having much that makes you rich. It's the giving much that makes you rich. Give, and you are the rich. And I'm sitting under a tree in Africa, and the richest in the world. And it's not Bill Gates, and it's not Warren Buffett, and it's not Mark Zuckerberg, and it's not the family with 2 cars, a flat-screen TV, and a week at Disney. It's a bunch of kids in Africa in ripped shirts and torn shoes who have no knives or forks and sleep on floors. It's only the people who give sacrificially who get to live richly. And I bow my sorry head. The pastor invites us to sing, and I'm not sure how to find my feet. I'm not sure how to let go. I'm not sure how to live. The song begins a cappella. Hearts are the only instrument we all have. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. African voices, deep and strong, join ours. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the King. I sing the words looking out at a congregation of worn-out clothes hanging over tired backs and hungry bellies and willing hands. I sing the words looking into the whites of eyes in weathered ebony faces. And then I am only mouthing the words. There's no voice left in me. Like there's no way I can sing that soon and very soon we're going to see our Father when I'm living like this and my brothers and sisters are living like that. When too many North Americans die for a hobby and too many Africans die for a meal. When our churches have building budgets and our sisters have dying children, we aren't playing games here. We aren't just singing ditty choruses here. If God is real, if the King of Kings and Lord of Lords is really on the throne, if we are all going to see our Jesus King face to face soon and very soon, then there's a whole lot of us who need to change things soon. Now. I'm standing in Africa and there's light in the trees and there's clarity and there's those who are saved, but only by the skin of their teeth, because they cared most about the comfort of their own skin and only minimally about anyone else's. They'll have hardly abundant entrance awaiting them in heaven. Oh, but that's not us. There are those who would rather turn away instead of turn around. There are those who would rather turn a blind eye to the needy than turn to the needy and be like Christ. There are those who would love playing at being a Christian than actually be one and love giving. I'm standing in Africa and there's a whole generation of us who want hard and holy things because we want more than hollow lives. There's a whole generation of us who want our children to know the more life, the more than self-focused cell phones, more than iPhones, iTunes, iPads, and iLove, who want them to know the more life of loving the least, the lonely and the lost, and tasting the joy of God. There's a whole generation of us who are done with our church buildings rising like these seemingly indifferent, polished towers toward the sky, right in the face of our brothers and sisters, drinking down muddied water, crowded into living quarters smaller than our bathroom, barely scraping together enough food to stave off relentless hunger pangs. There's a whole generation of us who are done with hardly even remembering them, let alone praying for them. I'm standing in Africa, and there's a whole lot of us who are done with easy, who say to the North American church, be concerned for the poor, but no less concerned for us rich who claim not to be rich so we can excuse ourselves from giving. Be concerned for the poor, but no less concerned for us who have done just enough to assuage our conscience, just enough to pat ourselves on the back, but not enough that we've ever felt sacrifice. Be concerned for the poor, but be no less concerned for us who aren't, because someday we will face Christ. I'm standing in Africa, and you can hear the whole North American church rising up and crying out, what if caring for the poor was more than just caring about easing our consciences? What if caring for the poor meant really sacrifice for the poor? What if we weren't really feeling care for the poor until we were really feeling sacrifice for them? North American church, it's time. We're all done with no risk, no sacrifice, no point lives. It's time. We're all done with the drug of comfortable and dare to live the dream of uncomfortable. It's time. We're all hungry for uncomfortable because we're hungry for God and He is outside of our comfort zone. This is what faith is. This, my friends, this is what love is. A life laid down is a life to love. And something inside me hurts. Give away only a little now and enjoy most of the money for yourself, and all you'll get is to be beggars for eternity. Let's pray. Lord, we cannot think of the word sacrifice without thinking of what Christ has done for us. And now as we eat of the bread and drink of the cup, we do it in remembrance. One of the things that they teach you in preaching class is that when you preach a sermon, oftentimes people will be thinking, well, what do you want me to do about it? You know, at the end of the sermon, you need to tell people what you want them to do. And I was thinking about that in reference to what I read to you. Do whatever God tells you to do. I think He would speak to you to what He wants you to do if you'll just ask Him. Just be prepared for the answer, because sometimes He'll ask us to do things that we don't like to do. I don't like to read things to you, and I was convinced that's what God wanted me to do. And I can tell you, when you do what He wants you to do, the best